All right, everyone. Welcome to the Lay the Points podcast. I'm your host, Kendall Caps, alongside my co-host here, Jordan Chiro. Jordan, what's going on, man?
It's so nice to see your beautiful face. This is our actual first show that we have video because we've done 11 episodes, just our voice, and now we get to actually talk to each other and actually look at each
And
other. So it's
actually
kind
see
of
each other.
cool.
Yeah, it should be a lot of
Exactly.
fun.
How's your summer been so far?
It has been good. It's been very, very busy. Just went camping, took the kids to Lake Arrowhead over the weekend. That was a ball. The kids had a blast. My little one got stung by a bee for the first time right as we sat down for dinner, like an hour into
Mm.
the experience. So I thought, oh no, here we go. But she was actually a trooper. 4 minutes later, she was off and playing with the other kids. So she had a blast. Yeah, it's been good. How about yourself?
Yeah. Well, speaking of the lake, like I actually was up at Big Bear Lake about a week and a half ago. We just My wife and I wanted to go get away and just spent a couple days on the lake. Took her fishing for the first time on a boat, and she actually caught a fish, so that was exciting for her.
Wow.
So, and then we're actually going back. Like, we're that couple. If we really like something, we'll just go right back to it, like within a month. So we're going back for my birthday in August, early August. So, kind of do the same thing, staying at a really nice Airbnb. But
Yep.
summer's been pretty good. Trying to stay cool. I live in Northridge, so gets pretty hot here. So but not
Yes,
too bad.
it does.
So, well, that's good that you're having a good summer so far.
Yeah, yeah, very busy. Speaking of summer, how about some summer league basketball? I know you've been all over that. I feel like every year there's just a little bit more hype coming into the summer league, and we get to see so many guys, and there's a handful of big names. So I kind of want to pivot to one of our new segments that we're going to be introducing for the show called Back to the Futures, and we're going to take a look at some of these futures bets that we think make a lot of sense. And coming out of summer league was just completed, which again, I know you've been all over. I'm curious on your thoughts on NBA Rookie of the Year, because we got to see a really nice glimpse of some of the key names that we expect to be, candidates for that award at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, going into summer league, like you kind of were looking at the top 5 picks: Paulo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith Jr., Keegan Murray, and Jaden Ivey. And so there was some marquee matchups that these guys went head to head. So that was pretty exciting. Although Paulo Banchero only played 2 games in the summer league, and they kind of shut him down. Which, like I get. I mean, he averaged about 20 points a game in 2 games, but I think these guys, like, people want to see them. Like, I mean, like, you're saving him to win what 25 games in the regular season. Like, let's see them play. So, other
I
than
think the
that, and
counter argument to that, though, and we see it a lot, and it's part of the reason why the Rams are now changing what is preseason football, right? They don't play any of their starters, and the risk of potential injury. And, fans want to see Paulo Banchero and see what he's got. I think that the team is more than likely willing to just find out once camp starts and then when the season starts in October or November. Because, I think it was they're being a little bit reluctant in wanting to push anything. We saw Jaden Ivey; he got hurt in his second game and didn't play the rest of the way. He's expected to be fine, but still, there's always that risk.
along with Shaden Sharp from because everyone kind of was wondering, is this guy really good at basketball? Because he was so good in high school and didn't play at college at Kentucky, and he literally took one shot in the summer league in the first game and tore like a labrum in his shoulder,
Yeah,
literally in the first quarter. So like, I get it, like I understand, but it's just like like how about some excitement for the NBA fans? Like, just like, I mean, it's summer league. It's a really, really big event. Every single year, it just gets bigger and bigger. And so, like I understand from the front office standpoint, but it's just like, like we want to see these guys play. It's summer. It should be fun. But I totally get the injury aspect of it. But injuries can happen in training camp. It can happen anytime. It could happen in an off-season workout. So, but overall impressions, I thought Paulo Banchero was good in his 2 games. I think he's just a very, very big dude out there, like a legit 6'10", 6'11", probably
yep.
about 220, 230. So very, very gifted offensive player. Defensive player, going into the draft, he wasn't really known as a defensive player. So he's going to have to work on that end. But I think offensively he'll be really good. Chet Holmgren from OKC. I mean, this guy has got a very, very good handle for a big man.
It's one of the best that we've seen. What is he? 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan, I think. And to be able to
Yeah,
do what he can do with the basketball
and
is pretty impressive.
he brings the ball up and he just like dribbles behind his back and just pulls up from the top of the key. And it's like nothing but net. It seemed like every time he was open from three, he made it. So he was very, very good until he played my boy Keegan Murray, who put 28 on him, and they actually guarded each other in that game, which was weird because Keegan Murray guarding Chet Holmgren, and I was like, okay, but I guess that was kind of like planned by the Kings coaching staff to see what he can do. Uh, I still worry about Chet defensively because he went against a Memphis Grizzlies player. Kenny Lofton Jr.,
Yes, that's who
who's
it was.
like,
Yep.
he's like 6'8", but he weighs about like 250,
Yeah, he's a
260.
beast. Yeah.
He's a big dude and he's very physical, and he went right at Chet. So just based on that matchup, you kind of saw Chet get pushed around a little bit. So I was like, uh-oh.
Well, and
Like,
it was interesting in the timing that it happened because it was in his second summer game. In the first one, he had that unbelievable debut, and
right.
he set all sorts of records, summer league records that had never been seen. He finished with 6 blocks in that first game, which
Yep.
that was one of the big things coming in is how good of a shot blocker is he going to be? What's going to win out, his length or his lack of size and strength? And in the first game, everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, this guy's going to be the next second coming." And then in the second game, we saw Kenny Lofton Jr. time after time, especially early in that game, 3-4 possessions in a row, just backing him down, muscling him down, shoving him under the basket, and using that as leverage to be able to get layups off.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that dichotomy happen early in the summer league. Overall, I was still really impressed. And even though I know I had probably a little bit more reservation toward him in the NBA because of the 190-pound frame than you did, I came away overall mostly impressed and believe that he will have not only a solid season but a solid career, I think, going forward in the NBA.
Well, outside of his offensive production, his defensive awareness for a rookie that I saw in summer league was just exceptional. Like just his timing of blocks and knowing where to be and weak side protection, and then also his vision as a passer because he's
Yeah.
so long. He can literally hold the ball up literally 9 feet in the air and find cutters, and he was doing that at summer league with ease. So I mean, like not only with his shooting, he's a pretty good rebounder. Like I thought he'd be a better rebounder, like in summer league, but
Well, it's
um,
going to be hard for him to consistently get position like he
yeah,
would want until he can put on another 15, 20 pounds of muscle, hopefully.
right. But yeah, I mean his ceiling is sky high. Like he's definitely like he was my draft crush for the Sacramento Kings, but I knew that they'd have to trade up to get him and give up a lot of draft capital to do that. So and then let's talk about Jabari Smith Jr. So I didn't see a lot of Jabari, just saw some highlights, but I saw him play the Kings in their final game 2 days ago, and when Keegan was not playing. And my observation from that was he's a defensive great wing. Really, like can move his feet, active hands, just lateral quickness is there. So he's going to be a good defender. Didn't shoot the ball very well. His shot was flat a lot.
Yeah,
But
shot
that
26% from downtown, I believe.
Yeah, and wasn't that kind of like one of his calling cards was being
Yeah.
a really good three-point shooter? So I was kind of disappointed with that. And then I saw his rawness a little bit. Didn't really kind of was a little out of control sometimes. So I think out of all the projections for rookie of the year, I think he's last for me. Even though I think he's going to get a lot of
Among the
shots.
big five.
Yeah, but now I can see why he didn't go number one. Like it makes sense
Yeah.
because Paolo Banchero, you know, he was kind of talked about as the draft was coming up as the most NBA
NBA ready
ready
player.
player.
Yep. That you
Eh,
could plug and play right away. Yep.
Right. And then if Paolo Banchero would have played 4 games in summer league, the two best players in summer league would have been Paolo Banchero and
And Keegan Murray.
Keegan Murray, who won the MVP announced today. So so yeah, so he would be at the bottom of my list, but I mean, these guys are so young. I think he's only 19 years old. So but I can see the potential there, but yeah, like I was kind of surprised by his shot. And then let's talk about Keegan Murray, the guy I didn't want the Sacramento Kings to take. I thought it was too high for the 4th overall pick. This guy, his demeanor is Tim Duncan-esque. He doesn't really very monotone, doesn't really have a lot of just character in his personality. He's just very straightforward, all business player. And a lot of people kind of like joke about that, but he's just all business. He's all about working
I
and
think you
winning.
guys needed that. I think the Sacramento Kings needed a player like that,
Yeah.
that wants none of the press. He's not out there to show pizzazz and flashiness. He's out there to go about and do his job and do it well. And knowing your new head coach, Mike Brown, has a very similar style of coaching. He's more about let's get to work, put in the work, and we'll
Yep.
see on the back end,
Yep.
everything that comes from that. And now you have a young kid that is unbelievably talented that also appears to be ready. Now, again, it's summer league. They're not playing against these NBA superstars, so it's hard to take too much away. But just from the eye test in watching him play and the leadership on the court that he seemed to be exhibiting, you have to love his chances of making a significant impact, not only on the Kings, but in the NBA as a whole, I Bleav.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out the most to me about him was he was so composed as a rookie. He never really did anything that was out of control. He was just very smooth out there. And sometimes like games like that are not like flashy. Like he's not going to give you highlight dunks that are going to be, like on ESPN, Twitter, whatever. I mean, they were showing Chet Holmgren like a good block that he had, or a steal and a dunk that he had, like all over ESPN. And then you look at
Yep.
the end of the game stats, he had 12 points and Keegan Murray had 28 and 9.
Yeah.
So, like he just goes about his business, but he finished summer league with 23.3 points, 7.3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.3 steals, and 50% from the field and 40% from 3 in 4 games.
And he hit over 80% from the free throw line. So
Yeah.
he was a 50-40-80 guy. And like NBA Hall of Famers, if you could be a 50-40-90 guy, like there's only elite guys. And now I'm not saying he's going to be a 50-40-80 guy in his rookie season, but he's shown that he has the ability to be efficient, which that's half the battle.
Yeah, and then the last guy is Jaden Ivey that we had mentioned earlier. He only played in a
A
game and
game
a
and a half.
half. Yeah, a
Yeah.
game and a
He had an
half.
ankle injury.
He was playing pretty well. Like you saw his quick first step and his speed. Like when he played, he averaged 15.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, but that's only in a game and a half. So, but as far as the NBA Rookie of the Year odds, Banchero plus 350, Chet plus 375, uh, Jabari Smith Jr. plus 550,
I'm fading there.
Jaden Ivey plus 650, and the one that I love, Keegan Murray plus 850. And the only reason I like Keegan Murray at plus 850 compared to these other guys who I think like Banchero and Chet are going to get the ball and shoot a lot, the efficiency of what Keegan Murray is going to get, because Paulo Banchero and Chet, like they're not playing with great passers like Sabonis, who draws
Yeah.
double teams and is just a phenomenal passer for a big. And then they don't have like a guy like De'Aaron Fox who can like literally collapse a defense with his speed to kick out. He's going to get so many. I mean, he was averaging 23.3 with guys that he's played for like a week and a half that he's never going to play with, and he's going to play with all these players, really good NBA players that have been playing in the NBA for like 5 years that know the ins and outs, and he's going to get so many easy looks. And so I think efficiency wise, he's going to have a lot of wide open looks cutting to the basket with Sabonis. I think it's a great fit. So that's why I think like Banchero might put up 20 shots a game or 22 shots a game, but he
Yep.
might only make 8 of them. And then Keegan Murray might put up 12 or 13, but might make 8.
Yeah.
So
I
efficiency
agree.
wise,
I think you could easily make the argument that out of those three, because in my opinion, those are the three favorites as well. Maybe you slide in Jaden Ivey in there as well. We just don't really know enough from what we've seen, and hopefully he's fully healthy and everything is fine for him. But among the big three, especially with the odds at plus 850, knowing what we just saw, I do Bleav that that's a solid bet. And you can absolutely make the argument that he has two teammates that are better than any of the players that
Mhm.
Banchero or Chet Holmgren will play with,
Yep.
right? Between Fox
Yes.
and Sabonis, those two are better than anyone those other guys on any of the other contenders have on their squads. So
Right.
they're going to be relied upon so much more to have to shoot. And I agree with the efficiency argument. I do, however, Bleav that Chet, because of his size and because of his ability both to shoot from the outside and to finish inside, I think he will also be efficient from the floor. And therefore, if I was laying my money at plus 375, I'm still almost getting 4-1 on my money. I like him a lot more than I like Banchero. I also like Oklahoma City a little bit as well. They can get up and down, and they have a lot of rangy guys. And so I think he's going to fit in really well there. So if I had to place my money, I'd probably go Chet at 375. But my second best bet, I agree, Keegan Murray on the board to get 8.5-1 after what we just witnessed, knowing he was arguably one of the more NBA ready guys as it was coming in. He was one of the older kids that actually spent a little time in college. I mean, I liked him for a lot of reasons, and he only helped solidify that argument, obviously.
Yeah, like the thing with Chet that I would argue with your bet on that is health. I don't think he's going to play an 82 game season. I think he's going to miss some time because I just think that he's just going to take a pounding when he's playing against these big, strong, grown men. And I know that, like, you know, there was big guys, like in the summer league, but these guys in the NBA are stronger. They're more skilled.
Well, but
Like
I
they're going to
also
know.
wonder, does Oklahoma City, despite him being 7-1, do they not even have him defend in the post all the time? And
I
have
mean,
him use his foot speed and stay out on quick fours and stretch fours maybe, as opposed to having to, you know, I don't know
I
exactly what they're going to do because yeah, if they just say, hey, go down there and block out and rebound, he's going to have a hard time for sure until he puts on weight. And Holmgren himself even said he didn't feel he needs to put on weight, which was kind of a red flag for me and was part of the reasons
yeah.
why I wasn't completely sold when he said that last month. But overall, I think your boy, he certainly stole the show. He did everything you could have asked for and more. And to see him still at plus 850, I agree that that's just some fantastic value.
Just bouncing off what you said Chet said he wants to guard more like fours and whatever, but I mean, we saw it. Like he guarded Keegan Murray, and Keegan Murray scored 28 on him and
Yep.
literally like just drove around him one time and dunked. So that would be my only concern, but I do like Banchero, obviously. And I think like the thing with Jaden Ivey, like I think Jaden Ivey in his first year is going to try to do too much because he's going to want to try to be the guy, but Cade Cunningham's the guy. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Everyone talked about how great of a fit that was, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, like time will tell, but
Yeah. We're
I
going to
think
have to see it.
Jaden Ivey is going to, I think he's going to try to come into the NBA and try to do too much. And he's going to have to kind of take a backseat and just fill in
Yep.
um, until he finds his spots and he can attack. But that's why I like Keegan Murray the best. And I'm not just being biased, but I like Keegan Murray the best because Keegan is going to know his role. He's going to know where to be on the court. He's going to know, like, he's not going to force shots if they're not there. He's just a smart player. Like, yeah, he could be
Yeah.
boring out there, but he's smart and he's going to make the right play. And that's why I think he's going to always be in the right spots. Obviously, like, there's going to be a learning curve. And, from the college game to the NBA game, like as far as games played. So there's going to be some rough nights, but I just think he's going to be solid. He's not going to do too much. He's going to fit in really, really well. So, um, okay. So we have those,
Those futures that you like. Well, and speaking, since
yes.
you're such a big Kings guy, I know that there was another futures bet pertaining to the Kings itself that you really, really want to target. And what was that?
Yeah. So I was on Twitter and I saw that there was NBA projection win totals come out for this season coming up. And two stuck out to me. And it's both from our teams, which is kind of cool. So I'll get your opinion on this. So Boston Celtics, they're projected to win 55.5 games. That's the highest projected total. Last year they won 51, but they also added two good pieces to their team, Malcolm Brogdon and Danilo Gallinari. So what do you think? Like, you think that's a good bet? 56 games?
I know it sounds like a stretch, especially knowing they won 51 last year, but I actually like the over. And I don't know if you agree with me there, but I'll tell you why. This team that we saw last year that won 51 games, they were two different teams during the course of the year last year. There was the first 2.5 months of the NBA season where they were still under 500. And then there was the completely different basketball team that we saw the entire rest of the year, all the way through the NBA Finals. And that team had the best record in the NBA from, I Bleav it was like January 3rd on. And their defensive efficiency, they practically lapped the field. Phoenix, I Bleav, finished second, Golden State in third, but points per 100 possessions allowed, the Celtics were like 4.5 points better than anyone in the league. Like, they were miles ahead of everyone once that switch flipped. So to me, Vegas is recognizing two things. One, they added Malcolm Brogdon, which was a key piece that the team really needed. I mean, we saw it in the NBA Finals. They didn't have a point guard or a guard that could create a shot for himself. I mean, I consider Jaylen Brown, technically he's a shooting guard, but to me, he's a wing. He and Tatum are almost interchangeable in some ways. They're wings to me. They're not really guards that are handling the ball all the time. And now you have that in Malcolm Brogdon. And whether he's coming off the bench or they eventually fit him in somehow, and maybe they pull Horford out and put him on the bench. However that plays out, he's going to play 25 plus minutes a game, and they have someone that can now create offense. Gallinari, even though, the last year or two, he has certainly taken a step back in his career, he's arguably the 9th best player on the Celtics team. So he might be the best 9th man I've ever seen. So between those additions and knowing that really last year's 51 wins was skewed because they were 20-21, 41 games into the season, I actually really like the over. I think they almost pushed to 60 this year.
So with those additions, does that mean like Grant Williams and who's the other guy that you can't stand off the bench? You told me.
Peyton Pritchard.
So do those guys take a back seat, and Gallinari and Malcolm Brogdon kind of, like, I know they're going to get more minutes, but those two guys kind of take over those guys' roles?
I mean, as of right now, the Celtics have come out and said that they're planning on bringing Brogdon off the bench. So if he comes off, and let's just look at a second unit, Brogdon, Derek White, Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard, and Danilo Gallinari.
That's
like
deep.
That's a really good bench unit. So now you're not expecting Grant Williams, who really struggled as the postseason went on into the NBA Finals. You're not asking him, when the second unit is in there, to have to carry the team offensively and get you 12 to 15. Now it's like, no, you're probably going to get a couple good looks because Brogdon can create some space for you and, just knock down a couple of shots. We're not going to ask too much and just bang and get a few rebounds, eat up a few fouls, which he's always good for. So I think those additions are going to make it so much easier on Derek White and Grant Williams to be more efficient coming off the bench.
So you like the 55.5, the over?
I do. I think they push for 60 wins.
Wow. That'd be a really good season, regular season. The other one that jumped out to me, and again, I'm going back to my bias, Sacramento Kings, but I just thought it was an easy bet. They're projected to win 31.5 games next year. Last year, they won 30. But Domantas Sabonis got hurt late in the season. He hurt his knee, and Fox had an injury, and they basically missed them combined. They missed the last 12 to 15 games, and they only won 30 games. So if you're going off that, and then this year they signed Malik Monk because they needed shooting, traded for Kevin Huerter, added Keegan Murray, and then they brought in championship coach Mike Brown. So you mean to tell me, like, basically with those additions and a very, very underrated head coach, defensive-minded head coach, that they're going to only win
one
two
more?
I mean, come on. Like, to me, that's I'm smashing that over. Like, we were talking about it before the podcast.
In the face to you.
Yeah, we were talking about it, and I get it, but I figured it would be 35, 36 wins, then it's kind of like, you kind of have to think about it. You're like, I don't know, but that's kind of disrespectful. 1.5 wins more. And, it's not like Luke Walton's coaching the team anymore. I mean, Mike Brown, he's coached some of the best, Tim Duncan, LeBron James, Steph Curry. He's he's been under Steve Kerr for 5 years. So, like I get it, but like let's not compare Luke Walton's coaching to Mike Brown's coaching. It's just
Well,
totally
and
different.
also I think another thing that bodes well in you hitting that over is, offensively, you guys had weapons and had the ability to score last year. And there were too many instances where the team just didn't seem to put forth the effort you needed on the other end of the floor. Defensive
Mhm.
lapses happened way too frequently for Sacramento, and guys were
Right.
just taking possessions off.
Yeah.
And Mike Brown is the sort of coach who's going to hold players, especially veterans, accountable for that.
Yep.
And that's something that has been lacking. I mean, Luke Walton was a player's coach, and we've to this day, we don't really know, is Luke Walton a very good coach whatsoever. He spent some time in Golden State when Steve Kerr needed some time, but that was, as we know now, what has become a dynasty. I
Right.
mean, a team that's won 4 titles in 8 years and been to the final 6 of those 8. So, I mean, how much did he really need to do? So, like, I feel like that right there is a massive addition by bringing in a coach that's going to hold players like De'Aaron Fox accountable when he starts just taking plays off defensively.
Yeah.
And I think that could make that alone might, help get a couple victories. And then, like you said, some of these Huerta is such a great shooter, and he's likely to see some really good looks. Keegan
Mhm.
Murray coming into the league, knowing that the role that he's going to fit into that you talked about earlier in the segment, I feel like there's so many reasons to believe that Sacramento, I don't know if they're a playoff team yet, but I feel like they're pushing for, at the
Yep.
very least, the play-in, which should get them in the, I think, 36 to 40 range, in my opinion.
I mean, like, and then you add the addition of Malik Monk, and him and De'Aaron Fox played together at Kentucky. And so they were dynamic there. And I'm not saying that, but Malik Monk, he had a quietly pretty good season with the Lakers. I mean, he
Yeah.
shot almost 40% from three. Coming off the bench, he averaged about 13 points a game. I think he's going to get a lot of time. And then you get that chemistry with Fox. Like, I think
Yeah, weren't they
offensively,
like best men at each other's wedding or something like that?
De'Aaron's getting married very soon, and Malik Monk is like his best man, I
Yeah,
Bleav.
I mean, so they're really
So,
close. And Monk,
right.
it was such a perfect addition for what I was just touching on. He is one of the better defensive guards. And in today's NBA, I feel like the vast majority of guards don't play
Yeah.
great defense. So it's hard to find. And Monk is one of the guys that does. And
Yeah.
knowing that that was the biggest deficiency of the team last year, I really liked that addition. I mean, overall, I think Sacramento had maybe, if not the one of the best off seasons, and yet Vegas still listed at 31.5. So I agree with you. I think you hammer that.
Yeah, yeah, them in Boston. I mean, Boston secretly had a really good offseason. They didn't really trade away any of their core, and they added, like to what they already have. So, but it was funny because I just want to mention about what you said about Mike Brown and his accountability. He is going to be holding these players, and the Kings have never had a coach that really held them accountable. So Steph Curry, like I saw an interview with Steph Curry, and they asked him when he was golfing in Lake Tahoe over the summer about Mike Brown, and he's like, "I'm happy for Mike Brown." He's like, "But I just want to just tell you guys right now, like the Kings players, they're gonna have to play defense. Mike is going to be on them, and if you don't play defense, like you're not gonna play. So you better get to love defense." And Mike Brown has a very, very like happy-go-lucky personality, but I think he's going to be all business. And if you're not going to play defense, then you're not going to play. So if they, with their offensive pieces, if they can just be an average defense, I think they can be a pretty solid team.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
so we'll see. But yeah, I'm smashing that over 31.5 for sure. So sometimes we get into things we see with sports on the internet or on TV, and you either really like love what you're hearing, or you're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave that, like I'm not even gonna touch it. So this is a new segment that we created called Love It or Leave It. And our first topic today is going to talk about the Kevin Durant situation, which is on a major hold. No one knows what's happening. We're all just sitting here waiting. I heard that like general managers on vacation, they're going to deal when they come back. It's like, it's holding up whatever other deals are going to happen in the NBA. So this is our first topic on this. So love it or leave it. Kevin Durant will start the season for the Brooklyn Nets,
I
even with
love it.
DeAndre Ayton offer sheet was signed
I,
with the
I
Suns.
think I think the Phoenix Suns were the one team that could have put a good enough package together
Yep.
to land that deal. But once the Pacers force the Suns' hand to also match that offer sheet, he can no longer be traded until January 15th.
Yep.
And knowing that, and also knowing what the Nets and their organization and their general manager has reportedly been asking for in a trade for Kevin Durant. Supposedly, they are asking for a king's ransom for the 34-year-old, often injured Kevin Durant. People, I mean, I love KD. He's a Hall of
Yeah.
Famer, easily one of the greatest players we've ever seen. But I feel like people think that we're still getting the same Kevin Durant of a few years ago. He's had one massively major injury, and then another injury that cost him 20 games this year. So we've seen a couple major ones. Defensively, he's not the same player that he once was. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, he's outstanding, but the fact that the Nets are asking for an exorbitant amount, it made it really difficult for them to find a trade partner. And a lot of people thought this was going to happen quick, and it obviously did not. And especially once Ayton signed that offer sheet and is back with Phoenix, the only thing Phoenix can do now is offer maybe Cameron Johnson, Michael Bridges, and a handful of late first round picks, in the future. That's not going to cut it, especially for what Marks is asking for.
Well, they
And
would need a third or
Miami
fourth
has their
team.
hands tied, and Hero is not a good enough piece for them to make that deal. And so there's not a lot of other options realistically out there. I Bleav the odds on teams to land him. So right now, Brooklyn is now the favorite to have him at the start of next season at 2-1. Then Miami's plus 325, Toronto plus 375, Phoenix plus 600. I think you could just take Phoenix. You can write them right out. They know they were good enough to win a title last year. Their hand was forced. They brought Ayton back. They have the same team that they had last year. What happened in the playoffs was insane. The fact that they got drubbed the way they did in Game 7 against the Mavs. But let's not forget how great of a team they were during the regular season. They'll be just fine. I just don't see Miami or Toronto having a package good enough. So I think even though KD won't want, he might not be happy about it, I think Vegas has got it right now. That 2-1 that he goes back to Brooklyn to start the season is how it's going to play out. How about you?
So you love it.
I love it.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it because I think the NBA offseason is madness. It's probably one of the most exciting things to follow outside of the drama that goes on during the regular season. The NBA offseason is insane. So I'm going to leave it because I think this is going to be one of the most historic trades. It's going to be so complicated that I think it's going to be a 4 or 5 team trade to get KD out of Brooklyn. I think he probably ends up in either the Heat or the Raptors. And you're going to see players from 3 or 4 or 5 teams moved all over the place because Brooklyn, just like you said, what's being offered right now is not enough. And you're going to have to include other teams that are going to have to get involved to get other pieces from them or picks. So I think it's going to be some crazy ass trade where you're going to get 4 or 5 teams and Twitter is just going to go insane.
If he does get moved, I think you're right. It's going to require that. And I Bleav I read last week that the Nets even asked, I Bleav it was Phoenix before the Ayton offer sheet happened, asked Phoenix to reach out to another team because it just wasn't going to work yet. Or it might have been Miami. They might have asked Miami. Yeah, I think it was actually Miami. And they asked them directly to start working with some other teams to see if they can make it work because there just wasn't enough coming from the Heat roster. So I agree that if something goes down, it would need to be something crazy. And in today's NBA, generally when a superstar, especially, in the NBA, that's the league that has given all this leverage to players. In the NFL, we're starting to see it a little bit. In baseball, we're starting to see it a little bit, but primarily it's just been basketball where the superstars now have the leverage. And so that has created this position where when a player demands a trade, they typically always get moved. But I think the Nets are just really stubborn. And I don't think they're going to pull the trigger unless they feel they got what, he's worth, which you almost never will get that.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Can you really go into next season and just ruin next season? I mean, I'm not saying the Nets are going to be a bad team, but them, with Kyrie and Ben Simmons, that's not a championship team. So, and that's
Well,
the
you're
goal.
saying you think he holds out if they don't trade him? You think he holds out?
No, I don't think he holds out, but I think it's gonna not gonna be good. And what if he gets hurt again? Like, what's his trade value gonna be when he's 35 years old? It's just like I just think these players, like when they ask out, once they do that, it's so hard to work it out with them if they come back. So that's why I think like if he wants out, I mean, you're either gonna have to like lower your value and not ask for like literally like insane amount of players and picks, um, or you just kind of just maneuver with a bunch of teams to get like the players you want. And, like it might even include Ben Simmons getting shipped out. I mean, who knows? But I just think that like the players, like they just, Kevin Durant could make their season miserable if he wanted to. He could. He could just not try and just, it would just not be good. So once a player goes over that, it's just kind of like, like, and you haven't heard anything from him on a social media or whatever saying it's not true. Like he wants out, but it's just like, I just kind of eye roll like every time he wants out because he always goes and plays and he wants out. And then Kyrie Irving, I mean, I don't know. Like,
I think
so
honestly, I
it's a
think
mess.
Kyrie is part of the reason why he probably wants out of Brooklyn. You know, they've been there in Brooklyn for 2 seasons, and what is it? Something like 30 games total, something along those
Mhm.
lines that they've played together in 2 seasons. And part of the stance with Kyrie and the vaccine now, in theory, that shouldn't be an issue going forward. Um, but I think there was a little bit of friction there. And there's one thing that everyone can acknowledge about Kevin Durant, and it's that he has that same Mamba mentality of he puts in the work. Everyone in the media for years has talked about he puts in the work. He's in the
Mhm.
gym before anyone, he's the last one to leave. And Kyrie, I don't think you're not getting that same guy.
Right.
He's clearly never fully committed. If anything,
Yep.
he's openly vocal about not being fully committed because of whatever personal feelings it might be, whatever the
Right.
topic is, and how he allows outside factors to influence some of the decisions that he makes. But I
Right.
think that, maybe it makes sense that they move him still, even though you're going to get quite a bit for Kyrie, especially now that he just signed a new contract. So
Right.
it's guaranteed that whoever would want to trade for him will be able to have his services for a bit. So maybe that's what they end up doing. But it certainly it was a bombshell when KD announced that. What,
Right.
3 hours before free agency opened? He
Yep.
stole the show. It
You
was
know,
it was unbelievable.
I don't think we talk about how bad the Brooklyn Nets organization is. I mean, look what they did. So they tried to build this super team, complete and utter disaster. And then they tried and they traded all those picks for an old Kevin Durant. I mean, like an old Kevin Garnett, an old Paul Pierce. Disaster. But we
Yeah,
don't,
one of the
are we
worst trades
talking
in
about?
NBA history.
I mean, what are they like? What is going on? Like everything that they try to do over there is they try to create this super team, and it never works. I mean, you have Kyrie and Durant, and it's just a disaster. So, I mean, like to me, it's kind of like LeBron and AD. Like you think that would be like just unstoppable, but they're just kind of that's a whole another bag of worms that we're not going to get into. But I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to say that if he does end up, I really like Miami plus 325. I think if
I also
they
really hope that doesn't happen. So maybe I'm biased because that
right,
that might,
you know,
make them the prohibited favorites in the East if they land
yeah,
it.
Jimmy Butler and Durant, and then they'd obviously have to trade away, but they'll get some, they'll still have some decent pieces there. So that's who I would take. So, anyways, should be interesting. Hopefully, it resolves itself in the next like 2 months. So, anyways, but let's jump into Kendall's corner, talking some baseball.
All right. So, in honor of tomorrow's MLB All Star game, I decided to rock my Pedro jersey. He put forth, in my opinion, the greatest All-Star game performance anyone has seen, at least during my lifetime, in '99 in Fenway Park when he struck out 5 of the first 6 batters of the game, including Mark McGwire, Jeff Bagwell. It was like the best hitters in baseball during the middle of the steroid era. And here was this 165-pound soaking wet Pedro Martinez just making them look miserable at the plate. So in honor of him, the All-Star game tomorrow, I figured I'd break out a couple bets that make a lot of sense for that. So when I took a look at the lines for this game, first, there's the over and under that's sitting at 8. You can get it's at 7.5 in some places. But notoriously, the All-Star game, despite having all these amazing hitters, they're generally lower scoring ball games. 9 of the last 11 All-Star games went under 8, with 2 of them that pushed. So even in recent history, we see a lot of 5-2, 4-1, 3-0, 3-1, 4-3 games. And knowing that, and also knowing, yes, we have some boppers, but we also have some phenomenal pitchers. And it's in a pitcher's park in Dodger Stadium, with Kershaw getting the start, which is amazing. The year that he is having is unbelievable, and it's such a credit to him, considering, the injury history he's gone through the last couple of years and the age, and yet he's able to bounce back, and he gets the start on his home field for the All-Star game. So for those reasons, I really like the under. And then another part of the game, the line is American League minus a run and a half. And if you lay that run and a half, you're going to get plus 170, 175 in some places. So you're almost getting 2-1 in your money if the American League can win by 2 or more runs. And I know, people like betting money lines in baseball, and they like to stay away from the run and a half. But the simple fact is 90% of baseball games are not decided by a run. They're decided by more than a run. So in my eyes, anytime I'm going to take a team to win, especially if it's the team that's favored, I will almost always lay that 1.5. And I'm going to lay that 1.5 here with the All-Star game. And I'm going to tell you why. Yes, the American League has won 8 straight. So they're on a streak. And that's led a lot of people to be hesitant, including a lot of the money in Vegas thus far has gone to the National League, getting the 1.5, and thinking that, that streak's got to end sometime. But I feel like a lot of those bettors aren't truly informed. From 1963 to 1982, the National League won 19 out of 20 All-Star games. Then they traded back and forth a few times. Then from 1988 to 2009, over the course of 22 years, the American League won 19 out of 22. So we see long, extended streaks of one league winning almost every single time. And lo and behold, the American League currently has won the last 8 All-Star games. Knowing the length of the streaks that we have seen throughout the history of the All-Star game, I feel like you would be a fool to be the one who predicts the end of the streak. We don't know. It might go to 9. It might go to 10. It might go to 11. They won 13 straight that ended in 2009. The American League had won 13 in a row. So knowing that this streak could go on a couple more years, it could end this year. But I feel like you're a fool if you're the one betting that it will end this year. I will continue to bet the team that has the streak and eventually lose that streak. So I'm taking the American League minus 1.5, and I'm also taking the under 8 because we just don't see many runs in these games. And that's Kendall's Corner.
Nice work, Kendall. Take the American League, people. Take it. Keep the streak going. I totally forgot it was at Dodger Stadium this year.
Yes,
so that's cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool. So that'll be really, really fun to check in and watch. I know the Home Run Derby is tonight, so that should be pretty cool. There's going to be some bombs there.
Yeah, and
oh my gosh,
Alonso.
like they're going to
have time. Go with Pete Alonso. He wants to win the Home Run Derby more than anyone has ever wanted to win it. He takes more pride in that, and he's looking to become the first guy ever to win 3 straight. But the guys that previously had done well in this competition, it never mattered as much to them as this matters to him. And I feel very confident, despite the fact that he has a tough draw in the first round with Ronald Acuna Jr. I think Alonso gets through, and from there, I think he's going to coast and win the third one. But, that's just me.
All right. Well, a lot of good stuff, a lot of good insight from Kendall. And so we're in the dark days of summer. But we've come up with some cool segments coming up, like in the next couple of weeks, that we're going to incorporate in our shows. Football season is right around the corner. Training camps will be starting up in like 2-3 weeks. So that'll be really fun and exciting when we have some fun segments about that, future bets, and kind of what the hell did I hear or see segments possibly in the near future as well, with some NFL wild predictions. So we'll get all into that. I hope everyone has a great week. Kendall, it's good to see your face, and let's chat next Monday.
Absolutely.